Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Rick Wallace dropping in on you. Uh, Happy Sunday morning. As some of you prepare to get ready to go to church, or some of you prepare to spend time with your days, others will prepare for sporting events and whatever you do on Sunday. For me, Sunday is predominantly a combination of family time and the preparation for things I have to do during the week for the business. I finish up any unfinished projects, if possible, from the previous week. So it's a work day for me. It's busy. I spend it on a number of different things, depending. Sometimes I have speaking engagements, and I'm off doing that. But uh, to each their own way of engaging each and every day. Um, what I want to talk to you about today is something that is immensely important in the development of the capacity to live life at your full potential. I often talk about next level living life at the level of your design. Uh, Developing that capacity is a process. It's a process of putting a lot of different components together. And one of the things that in my desire to relay or uh, deliver the message that anything is possible when you believe that you can, and that when you take the necessary steps and apply yourself, it's important to understand that something being possible and something being easy are distinct, two totally different things, and the two don't normally exist within the same spectrum at any given time. If you're looking for ease, you tend to miss the capacity of progress at any true level. And when you're looking for comfort, when you're trying to hide in the corner of comfort, when you're trying to do things the way that it's simple and easy for you, you rarely step out and truly achieve what you're capable of achieving, simply because resistance, discomfort, pain, and a number of other things are simply a part of the process. And I tell people all the time that process always precedes the promise associated with your faith, associated with your design, associated with where you see yourself going. There's a promise attached to that. And that promise says that when you believe in yourself, you believe that your design is indicative of your purpose. When you believe that, when you believe that the Creator designed you with a specific purpose in mind, and in that design is the equipping for the fulfillment of the purpose, and that because the Creator is dynamically and infinitely intelligent, powerful, all-knowing, everything you need is encompassed in that, but also that exceptional power of the Creator demands that the design have an exceptional end. In other words, you weren't created for mediocrity. You weren't created to live an average life. You weren't simply placed here to exist and survive. And so when you develop an understanding of that and you begin to drive yourself towards your destiny, man, I love that word destiny. Give me a minute. The word destiny. The word destiny, by its very definition, means that no matter who or what attempts to stop it, they only ensure that it happens. It means it's destined. And when you have a destiny assigned to your name, that means the only one that can stop the destiny is you. And that the only way you can stop it is to quit on it, is to give up on it, is to turn down the path of least resistance, is to sit back and fold and cower in a corner when you meet the vicissitudes and challenges of life that are coming, no matter what you do. And so I tell people all the time, one of the greatest catalysts of procrastination is fear. And there's fear of failure. There's fear of what other people are going to think. There's the fear of the unknown. There's the fear of how much it's going to cost you and hurt, and all of these other things. And you have to learn how to cope with each one of those and conquer those. First and foremost, you must develop a capacity that simply will not allow you to be concerned with the random opinions of others, or as I say, the random opinions of the minimal minded. You have to be so focused and fixed on what you believe for yourself that you are not even listening to any contrary. Matter of fact, you're dismissing any contrary ideas to what it is you're striving for. But when you have your mindset on destiny, something you're destined for, something you're built for, something you're designed for, something that's well within your capacity, when you apply your potential, most people die with unactualized potential. I believe it was, I know Les Brown quotes this, but I believe it actually came from either Jim Rome or Bob Proctor, maybe someone before that, but I know that Les Brown quotes it a lot, but it's been said that the wealthiest place on the planet is the cemetery. Why? Because of so many people dying with unfulfilled dreams, untapped potential, books unwritten, speeches not given, businesses not started, families not started. And we can go on down the line of all of these untapped visions and dreams that with inventions that were never brought forth. Just so many things that people have in their mind, but because of fear, because of procrastination, because of concern of what other people think, that fear of failure. I said this in the video yesterday. Get over the fear of failure. Failure is going to happen. When you hide from failure, you're failing. Failure is going to happen. It's a part of life. It's a part of the training process. When you learn from your failures, when you use your failures to build a resilience, when you use your failures to build an endurance, when you use your failures to learn what doesn't work. I remember reading a quote from Thomas Edison. I probably am not going to get the quote exactly right, so it's a paraphrase of a quote from Edison. But when he talked about the 10,000 or so times he failed in experiments, especially when it came to the light bulb, Edison's response was, I didn't fail. I succeeded in finding 10,000 ways that it didn't work. But what most people don't realize is that in those 10,000 failures, he discovered a lot of other stuff that became useful. It wasn't what he was trying to accomplish, but simply in saying, I'm not going to stop because I failed the last 10 times, he ended up creating something else instead of what he was looking for, and it became useful. And through all of this stuff, Edison became an extremely wealthy man for his time. And so what you have to find is, what my mentor used to always tell me is that he says, you have this uncanny ability to fail forward. And I asked him, what does failing forward mean? I didn't understand at the time. I was a young cat. And he said that you set your goals so high that it's almost absolutely not going to happen in the time frame that you set it for. But you fail forward. You never end up where you started. You set it for 1 million and you hit 100,000 or whatever the situation is, and you do that, and then you go after it again, and you keep going after it again. When you look up, you failed 10 times and you failed yourself right into your goal. He said that's how you live life. You live your life failing into a new reality. You set your dreams, and then I shared this with you yesterday. It's actually a quote by Stephen Furtick that he wrote in his book, Son, Stand Still. And the quote simply says that if the vision that you have for yourself isn't so huge that it intimidates you, it's probably insulting God. And if you are a person who believes in a superior being, a superior intellect, God, the universe, however you see it, then you got to understand that you were designed with an expectation attached to it. There's nothing that's designed simply to design it. The design always has a purpose. And when you're designed for a purpose and you're not living in that purpose, you're not fulfilling the purpose for which you were designed. You got to think that if you're not fulfilling the purpose for which you were designed, the creator, the designer is somewhat perturbed. But you're talking about the imbalance, the energy imbalance in the universe. You're talking about so much that I won't get into right now. But what I want to talk about today, because I can go on and on and on about the challenges that you're going to face. But what I want to talk about today is what happens when everything goes wrong. What do you do when it seems like everything in your life is going wrong? How do you deal with that? I'm not talking about these emotional responses that we've been trained to do. I'm not talking about these instinctive moves to go to a place of prayer without understanding the dynamic of praying in whatever way you do it. Because see, there are ways that prayers cannot be effective in what you're seeking, and I'm about to explain it to you. In 2012, if you heard the video or watched the video yesterday, you heard me say that 2012 was by far the worst year of my 50 years on this planet. Nothing comes close. When I tell you that it was rough, you talk about rock bottom. I can tell you what it looks like. I can tell you what it feels like. I can tell you how people treat you. I can tell you the level. I can tell you all the things you discover when you hit rock bottom. I can talk about that. But one thing I can tell you is this. During this time that I was actually at rock bottom and I was determined that I was going to fight my way out, I had already made up in my mind that this is not where I'm going to die. This is not how my life is going to be defined. This is not the end of the story. I'm still writing. I'm still writing my story every day. I'm still writing my story. And at the same time, I'm literally during this time counseling pastors. I get a phone call and there's this pastor in Dallas and he's like, dude, man, I'm about to lay it down. I'm about to walk away from the game. I'm done. I'm tired of what I'm seeing. And I said, talk to me, man. Talk to me. What's going on? And he said, how is it that Black Christians are the most churched people on the planet, the most prayed up people on the planet, the most spiritual people, depends on how you define spirituality, on the planet, and yet the most defeated people on the planet? How does that possibly represent a connection to God? And my response to him was rather succinct. And for those of you who know me, I don't do succinct well. But my response was twofold. First and foremost, most Christians aren't taught and do not understand faith. Second, most Christians are not taught and do not understand the dynamics of prayer. First and foremost, most Christians believe because they believe in God, they have faith. No, you have faith that God exists, but in order to have the faith that moves things, that makes things happen, that literally creates the energy that emits from you, that moves to create your reality in a positive way, in the way that you desire for it to happen, you've got to believe not only in God, but you've got to believe in your connectivity and relationship to God and the power that's inside of you because of that relationship and because it was created and put inside of you at the very moment that you existed. That power has to be a power and a belief in self. We have been trained, conditioned to think lowly of ourselves. We've been trained and conditioned to sit back. We've been given a false definition and a false sense of what humility means. Humility is not backing in a corner and shrinking in order to make everybody else feel comfortable. That's false humility. That's being humble in a false sense. Humility is not in bowing down and pretending that you don't have greatness in you. Humility is understanding the source of the greatness. That's what humility is. Humility is understanding that no matter where you are in life, you didn't get there on your own accord. Humility is understanding that it took a great designer to set the foundation. Humility is understanding that it took parents breathing positivity and expectation and training in you. It took teachers. It took mentors. It took that person that you didn't know when you were down on your luck coming along and holding you up and speaking words of encouragement into your life. Those people that you are now pretending never existed. That's what humility is. Humility is saying, I know who I am. I know that when it comes to doing this particular thing here, I'm a beast at it, but I didn't get here on my own. I didn't get here on my own accord. There's a long list of things that took place that brought me here. And I owe a debt of gratitude, beginning with the Creator and moving on down to my parents and everything. And that type of that type of humility is what is true humility. It's not in pretending that you're not a beast. It's not in pretending that you don't have the capacity for greatness. It's in understanding where it comes from. that creates the humility. Well, anyway, all of these things are going on. This false humility. So I say, first of all, most Christians don't have an understanding. Most Black Christians don't have an true understanding of faith. They have a belief in God. That's the beginning. That's a long way off from what it takes to walk on water. And what most people never achieve it is because they've been trained to sit back and wait. They've been trained to sit back and wish. They've been trained to sit back and pray. And that leads me to the second thing I said. I said they don't understand the dynamics of prayer. See, let me explain something to you. This life is designed to bring you the things that you desire that are good. The universe will literally conspire on your behalf. It will literally work with you to create new and powerful realities that are good, that have an intent to be used for something bigger than yourself. Let me explain something. Selfish intent will destroy anything. If all you want money for is you're going to keep crashing. You may get it, but you'll never hold it. You've got to understand that this thing that you're existing in is bigger than you. That life is bigger than you, that what you're headed toward is bigger than you. Because see, that the bigger your vision and the bigger the impact on the people in your periphery and the world around you, the bigger your why. And the bigger your why, the greater your capacity to push through and break through difficult moments. When your why is so huge that it won't allow you to quit. When you wake up sometimes and you're sitting there and you're going, man, I just want to lay it down, and then you think about your why, and your why says, get up, dust yourself off, hold your chin up, square your shoulders. You're going to put this work in today. Why? Because there's something greater than you at stake. It may be your wife and kids. It may be your overall family. It may be the fact that you have a love to touch people who have been broken and down like you. They've been through exactly what you've been through, and you know what it feels like to come out, and you've got to develop a capacity to walk into that environment of nothing but negativity and stand strong and bring them out. And so you've determined that you're going to be this, and so your why is so huge it won't let you quit. But let me explain something to you. When I told you I was going to tell you there are times when prayer simply is not going to work, let me explain something. And I'm talking to anybody in any faith system that prays for certain acts of God. Let me explain something to you. Prayer is a tool of revelation. It is a tool of communication. It is a way of becoming in unison and one with the Creator. It is a way of gaining understanding of what's in front of you. Prayer has not ever, is not now, and will not ever be a way of escape from the path of your destiny. Let me put it another way. You cannot pray to God and ask God to deliver you from the very giants He sent you to slay. It's not going to happen. See, you talk about the will. Well, the will is that I sent you and designed you to make the world around you a better place. That meant you are automatically going to face some resistance by those who like things the way they are. So you're going to constantly be in a situation in which things are moving against you. I never designed you to go through any situations based on ease, based on comfort. I designed you to be a beast. I designed you to rise to the occasion. I designed you to walk on water, walk through walls, move forward, and build. You are meant to you are designed to make the world around you a better place. I tell people all the time who are in an evangelical mindset, you know, they want to tell people about God. They want to tell people how awesome God is. And they want to tell people how great God is. And I'm saying, wait a minute, you do realize when you're talking to these people are observing you, right? So when you're talking about how great God is, but you're complaining about never being able to pay your light bill, when you're talking about how great God is, but you're complaining about how many relationships and broken relationships and how bad you're treated and how bad you feel in your marriage, when you're talking about how great God is and you're talking about how people treat you on your job and how you hate your job, when you're talking about how great God is, and people are not listening anymore to what you're saying. They're hearing your complaints and seeing your state of mind and seeing where you're living at. The best way to evangelize a person is through the life you live. It's when you allow your life to speak for you. And I'm not just talking about how much you have. I'm talking about there's a way to go through a struggle. I remember in 2012 when I was having that difficult time, I remember getting a call from somebody I admired a lot. And they stood up and told me, bruh, they were one of three people in the entire world who knew, or at least who I told what was going on with me. I didn't want, because see, people, unfortunately, we have a tendency to judge people about where they're at now. We don't want to talk about where they're going. And I remember asking this person, why did they speak to me? I'm going to tell you what they told me after this, but I asked them, why do you speak to me in such reverence when you know where I'm at right now? And they told me, I don't see you how you are. I see you where you're going. I see what you're becoming. I see who you were designed to be and what you will become. I see it in your speech. I see it in the way you walk. I see it with the faith in which you engage your struggle. See, that's what I'm talking about. It's not simply being at this place all the time where nothing is wrong and everything is right. That place actually doesn't exist, by the way. That place where a lot of people like to pretend I got everything going on, I got everything right, nothing's wrong with me. That place doesn't exist. Now, but there is a place where you got peace of mind. There's a place where you've got control, where you've got a confidence that rests inside your understanding that you were designed and built for this. I don't care what it is, you're built for it. You're designed for it. You're capable of getting through it. But you've got to make the connectivity in this belief you have in God and the connection between you and the creator. If you can't make that connection, if all you can see is there's a powerful God, that has nothing to speak on what you're capable of. And you're going to be required to move through this life through your actions, not God. See, if God was just going to do it on his own, if God was going to handle everything, there was no need for you. So then that means that you are literally a manifestation. That's why you hear the term in the phrase in the image of God. That's because you have the capacity of God. See, people don't want to talk about that. A lot of people call that sacrilegious. But I'm telling you that you literally have the power to call those things that are not as though they were. That's not magic. That's actually physics. I'm talking literally physics. When you have a belief, that belief emits an energy that's on a high frequency, that has a high vibration, that literally resonates with other energy levels on this in this universe that are on that same high frequency level. And it makes that energy at its very micro and rawest form. Energy is actually consciousness. In other words, when you look at everything on this planet that's made from energy, everything on this planet, like I said this yesterday, is subatomic matter. It's made from energy. But what we've been able to do since Einstein's theory and all these other things that marched us towards this way is actually be able to measure and look at, and there are some unique things I can't get into how unique when we start studying quantum, which is subatomic matter, and looking at the breaking down of the atom, and we look at the way that the atom literally in its more molecular forms responds to human energy and human thought. The atom actually knows when you want to measure it. If you got to the point where you're finding it difficult to measure the entire scope, you know, if you were measuring the speed of the neuron, you couldn't measure the placement of the location of the neuron, and you couldn't measure all elements at the same time, and they couldn't figure that out. Then they start to realize that the atom was literally reformating when they tried to measure it. So they said, okay, it knows when it's being measured. Then they determined that when they just thought about measuring it, it started to shift. It knew what they were going to do before they did it. And they call this the zero field or the quantum field. And then there's the unified field. And what a lot of people call it is the mind of God, because at a certain point, every piece of matter knows. I remember Edison, when they were talking about all these great ideas he had, he said, every idea that man has ever grasped is in the universe. If I didn't reach out and grab it, someone would. So every piece of knowledge, every every idea, everything that you could ever think of, God has it in every ounce of matter, and you have the power to move that with your thoughts. That's been proven in physics. It's not something, it's not mystical, it's not magic, it's not some thing that everybody wants. It's simply the way that God designed the world in such order that it responds to you. It moves to what you believe, and whether that belief is bad or good, it's going to bring you what you believe. Life meets you at your expectations. It always does. Whatever your expectations of God is, whatever your expectations of life, what you believe is going to happen, what you give the most attention to is what you're going to experience the vast majority of the time. You have to change your mindset. But I told him, I said, until we start telling people the truth and still until we stop preaching them into an emotional lather without empowering them with tools that allow them to go out into life. First, mental tools that gives them a sense of who they are and an understanding that there's an identity associated with their presence. And if you don't have that identity, you can't be acquainted with your purpose. And if you can't be acquainted with your purpose, you've never really truly met your passion. And if you don't have your passion, you don't have the force that will push you through every dark moment in your life. See, when you're trying to get through that dark moment with that emotion you got on that Sunday sermon, but didn't get anything to fight with, nothing to understand, nothing to push through. You get around Monday and you start dealing with things at work. You start dealing with the frustrations at home. You start going through all of this. By the time you get to Tuesday, you've thrown up your hands and you're already starting to look to get that emotional fix that you get on Sundays. And so now it's just trying to survive the week to get back to church. That's not how it's supposed to be. So you're supposed to be equipped with an understanding of who you are. In that understanding, there's an identity. In that identity, you discover your purpose. When you discover your purpose, you become acquainted with your passion. And it's your passion that pushes you through the destiny. The passion has the endurance that emotion doesn't. That's why. Plus, you get an understanding that I have the ability to deal with my reality by changing my thinking. So let's talk about it from a religious perspective or a faith-based perspective. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Let's talk about another one. It says that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. It's not physical, although it's manifesting itself in the physical realm. Although you can feel it and see it, touch it when it happens, it's not carnal. It's mighty in God. And I don't want to get into the description of what that actually means when you break it down. For the casting down or pulling down of strongholds, everything that's holding you back, you have the mental capacity to break through by eliminating the limiting beliefs and starting to believe in the power and the capacity of yourself to call things that are not as though they were. And this works outside of the bounds of any one particular religion. So let's get that clear. This is simply about understanding who and how you were created and what the capacity of that creation means. But anyway, it goes on and says that for casting down strongholds. It says for the weapons are our warfare not carnal, but mighty in God for pulling down stronghold, casting down arguments and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. In other words, you've got to have in your mental capacity the ability to recognize those things that are speaking and moving against you and be able to dismiss them based on the faith and the understanding of who you are, bringing every thought into captivity. And here it says in the obedience of Christ. So in other words, you're saying that you have to have a disciplined manner of thought. You've got to hone in but you've got to have the ability to define who you are, where you're going, and you've got to be able to have a discipline in that thought of not being shaken. I believe it was in the book of James that sit up and says that when you allow your mind to be moved to and fro, tossed by the winds, unstable. James called him a double-minded man. That's 1 minute you're claiming that you're a victory, you're a conqueror, you're all these things that the Bible tells you are, but then you're over here whining and complaining about what you're going through. See, a conqueror doesn't whine. See, somebody that's mighty doesn't whine. Somebody that's victorious doesn't claim to be a victim. You got conflicting beliefs. That's why you're in a constant state of dissonance or dis-ease, because you're claiming a power that you're not actualizing and using, and you're frustrated with your results. So what do you do when everything is going wrong? You tap into the source of the understanding of who you are. If you don't know who you are, there's absolutely nothing I or anyone else, including God, can do for you. If you lost in the sense of self, if you don't have a self-image and a self-concept that equates and builds a self-confidence that says, I am built for this. When I got to my moment in 2012, that's all I had. Literally, was the understanding that I was built for it, that everything that I had went through in life to that point had prepared me for that moment. And so I didn't know how. That's the awesome thing about this thing. So many of you are at a place where you're trying to get somewhere and you keep evaluating whether or not it's possible based on whether or not you know how. Les Brown says this all the time. When you are determining whether or not you have the capacity and you are making a decision on whether or not you're going somewhere in life or you're going to commit to doing something, how you're going to get it done is absolutely none of your business at that time. And I'm about to explain to you why. Then I'm going to shut this down. When you are making the decision to do something, you're deciding to do something you've never done before, there's probably a good possibility that you don't currently have the skills, the knowledge, the resources, and the know-how to get it done. So when you're trying to figure out how it can be done, you won't know. Why? You haven't yet developed the capacity. Doesn't mean that you can't. It just simply means you haven't. You make the commitment first. I believe it was William Hutchinson Murray that says it's when you make the commitment and the decision to step out at that moment that you make a commitment to step out into a place that you don't yet have the knowledge of how it gets done is when providence moves. Providence doesn't move before you make the commitment. Providence demands that you commit first. When you commit, that's when things start to fall in line. That's when the person that you've been literally looking at and speaking to in Starbucks for the last year as they walk by stops and holds a conversation with you. That's when the person that you sit next to on the train or the bus or when you commute every day turns around and say, hey, I've noticed that. And that leads to them knowing somebody that knows somebody that can help you. That's what you gotta understand, that God designed this thing to work a way that you've got to actually tap into it, understanding and believing that it's going to happen. You will not understand in most situations how you're going to get to the finality of your goal, especially if you set it huge enough to where it's demanding something supernatural from you. You're not going to see it initially. Stop looking for the answer before you make the commitment. Start believing in having true faith. See, faith that can, anything that can be logically explained, worked out, analyzed, and strategized doesn't require faith. It requires logic and application. Anybody can do that. If I can sit up and see how it can be done and map out how it can be done, take the necessary steps, doesn't require faith. Faith is when I can't see how it's going to be done, but I know it can be. Notice I didn't say I believe it can. I know it can be. So even though I can't see how it's going to be done, even though when I examine everything, I don't see all the components necessary to explain to me how it can be done, the simple idea of understanding that if I can conceive it in my mind, it's God's evidence that it's possible is all I need. So now I'm going to step out there and start moving toward it. And that's when things start to happen. Paulo Coelho says that when in The Alchemist, he says that when you move out there and you take that step, when you believe it's possible, when you start acting in true faith and you believe it's possible, you start to move toward the universe actually conspires on your behalf. Wallace D. Wattles says the same thing in his book, The Science of Getting Rich, written in 1906, that there's a substance. That's what he calls faith, that there's a substance that when you access it and actualize it and put it to work, it draws on the abundance of the universe. And he says that there is no such thing as lack, that God designed this entire universe to provide in abundance whatever is desired and needed by those who will use it for good. And so when that in mind, I don't worry about who has the abundance of the wealth. That doesn't matter to me, because I know I have the power to create. And it doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight. I'm still rebuilding from what happened in 2012. But what I do is I look at progress. That's another thing. And then I'm done. We've got to learn how to celebrate and appreciate progress. Progress to me is the greatest form of success. It was Earl Nightingale. Little boy, listen to LPs on the record my mom got for me. And he would talk about the definition of success. And I adapted it to my own simple definition to keep me set when I'm trying to get to a point and I start saying, man, I'm not getting there. And you start convincing yourself you're not successful because you don't have what you said you were going to have, and you didn't do what you said you're going to do yet. And then like this here, and then you listen to all of the little rumblings in the back that the sweet nothings of negativity whispered by the minimum minded that are sitting up telling you, you can't do it. See that he said this, and it starts to, and you have to take time to step back. And the simple definition to me for success is a consistent progression towards a worthwhile goal. It's not simply in hitting the goal. It's in all the little bitty steps of growth that it takes to get there that you find success. So I literally celebrate my successes every day. Why? Because if all I celebrate is my 90-day, the reaching of my 90-day goal, my 6-month goal, and my annual goal, that's 3 times a year that I get to celebrate and feel the joy, the fulfillment of reaching something or improving a progress of success. But when I can look at the little small micro successes, when I can wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and see that the man staring in the mirror is just a little bit better than the man that looked in that mirror the previous day, then I can turn around and say there's progress, that's something to celebrate, something to be proud of, something to motivate, inspire me, and push me forward while I'm dealing with this. That is what you got to be able to do. You got to take those micro progressions. You got to be willing to sit up and say, you know what, I didn't get where I thought I was going to get, but I'm not where I was. And then you amp it up. You look at the mistakes you've made during that period of time. You look at what you did right, and you start to reanalyze some new ways. You pull in somebody that's done what you're doing, and you model them. You model the best of yourself. You model the best of your mentor. And then you turn around and you evaluate daily, introspectively examining who you are from the inside out. This is what you do when everything goes wrong. You tap into the source of your existence and re-examine your why, your purpose. That is going to be so huge if you really truly know who you are, that it's going to not push you through, but it's going to be so powerful that it will literally it will be in front of you, pulling you through. That's the power of understanding who you are, tapping into that source and knowing your why, your reason, your purpose, having it be so huge that it's bigger than any moment. See, you're going to get moments that are bigger than you. But when you know your why, you're never going to encounter a moment bigger than your why. When your why is so huge that it's connected to your the totality of your destiny. I absolutely love you guys. I want to see people live at the level of their design. That's what I want to say. I want to see you live at the level of your design. I want to see you rise above all of the minimum-minded ideas about what life has and what you're capable of. Get out of that box. Start to think laterally. Start to think critically. Start to be creative. I said this, I think, yesterday, and I said it again, and I'm done. Resourcefulness is your greatest resource. Not your currency, not your assets, not who you know, but the ability to be resourceful. In other words, if you don't have it, you find a way to get it. Is your greatest resource. When you're resourceful, what you don't have, you'll find. So there's a link in the comment field. If you're viewing this on Facebook, if you're viewing this on YouTube, it is going to be in the description box. But you can visit the Visionetics Institute official site and get a lot of free resources and some paid resources for those who want to take it to the next level. But whatever you do, start investing in yourself. And your greatest asset outside of your mind is your time. So invest that first. But definitely invest in yourself. I'm out of here. As I always say, I'm going to die on E. I encourage you to do the same thing. Peace.